What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your movie podcast for reboots, remakes, sequels, and why we continue to tell these stories over and over again. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this week, we are talking about Final Destination Bloodlines, the sixth movie in the Final Destination franchise. I didn't realize this until I just looked it up now. It's the first one released in like 14 years.
Yeah, this was a franchise that was doing them like almost every 3 years, and then it was like, all right, we're done here. And
And I just think that's interesting because we talk so often about all these things never going away and they're always here. Da, 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 da. And there are so many that are dormant for this long that I don't think we think about. There are just so many franchises forever.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I think this is also one that kind of stays in your subconscious.
I
I
was going to say
think,
this lives in the zeitgeist because of some of the imprints that it's put on people. Yeah,
and because even when I saw that, I was like, 14 years, has it really just been memes and people driving behind trucks that I've been seeing instead of these films? It feels
it
like
feels like
everyone I
it's
said this to was like, oh man, they're still making those. This is like what, number 20? And it's like, nope, you just
no,
keep seeing the TikToks and the memes about it.
right.
It's
They
just stayed
stopped a
with you.
long time ago. Yeah,
It's just made you afraid of tanning salons and
correct. Going to Home
logs and
Depot and like yeah, anything you can think of, you are now terrified of. Yeah.
which I think we'll talk about the success of it in a little bit, but I think that's partly why this one took off in such a big way that the other ones didn't really see. But let's first get into the movie. What did you think?
Yeah, this is a franchise that I go to the theaters immediately anytime that I see one's coming out. And quality be damned, because the first three actually I really like, because James Wong got to cut his teeth on the third one. After that, they've had some progressing offerings, but there's still pieces of them that I enjoy. This one is the first time that in a long, since probably three, that I was like, oh, this is a really good film. And I think they managed to do what I sometimes like Scream did it, although I think they did it to a lesser degree, where they were able to recapture what the original two did, but also sort of bringing it to a newer audience and adding a little bit more heart to it. Because I think that's what you used to get away with back in the day of having these horror movies. Like, we don't care about any of these people. We're just going to put them to torture and kill them and be damned. Whereas this one is like, nope, we're going to actually take a moment to give you a moment to breathe, care about these folks, and then we're going to put them through pure hell. And that's, for me, that makes better horror, more entertaining horror, and stuff that I can get attached to more. And I think that's why this one works so well for me. I had a genuine blast with this movie, and I think for me, it sort of recreated some of those terror moments that I had that have become permanent imprints on my brain from back in the day. There's a couple of things like I don't MRIs. I don't want to have one of those now. Like I'm good. I'm good with nah. I pass. Um, but this is just fun, and I think from start to finish, you and I saw this together. We saw it in the audience. I think this is important. This is a movie that you should see with an audience. You should, even though our audience was a little dead-ish, but I think overall you should watch this with an audience because I think that's what we talked about a little bit. This movie leaves breathing points where it's not winking at the camera, but it's sort of like, hey, I'm going to give you a little bit of air so that you can join in on us on this laughter or this point that we're trying to prove or recreate here, and then we're going to continue on. It's really well written. It's tight. It moves at a great speed, and it's probably, I would argue, we're in this sort of horror renaissance where we're starting to see some of these older properties come back and do things well enough where it's like I didn't realize that I missed you, and you've been gone for so long, and now it's not you never left. We're like best friends again. Thanks, Final Destination.
Yeah, I think I completely agree because it is a franchise that I think you always have to see it with people. Like I
Mm.
can't imagine just watching this by myself. Like even at home, it just
Yeah,
doesn't seem like why. Because I think part of the fun is the oh shit moments and
correct.
these crazy
Yeah.
deaths and these just over the top insanity.
Hmm.
And I'm with you. I like the first two. I think three is where they really started embracing the campiness, for lack of a better
Yes.
word. And
Yeah.
I think that's what like four is so interesting to look at now because it's such a specific point in time where like we were sort of starting this reboot remake renaissance, and that's when it was the
The
Fast and the
final, and
Furious,
it was the Final
the Final
Destination.
Destination, the and all of those movies like had this weird like it's time to take it seriously.
Yeah.
We saw Batman Begins and we learned all the wrong lessons. And then five had another weird like movie curse of like, well, it's got to be in 3D
3D.
now.
That's
We
3D is
got to
bad boy.
throw everything at you. So it's funny watching the franchise kind of be at the mercy of like
Of
whatever
time.
trend is
Yeah.
happening. Because it kind of has that piece to it where it almost fits into any wheel. Like if you had this property and there was a trend going on, you would be like, oh, we got to make a Final Destination for this.
Hmm.
It reminds me of when like everything was in space or like during like the 90s when everything was like tech and it was
Yeah.
like well we saw the Matrix and now Pinhead has to have technology and this has to go inside a computer.
Hmm.
um but this one works so well because it embraces like almost every piece of the franchise that came before it in the like craziness and in the like heart and the emotionality. It's the first time we see it with a family and we
Hmm.
kind of watch this like trauma unfold and we do this almost boy who cried wolf back and forth of like we don't believe you, now we believe you, now we don't.
Yeah.
For a franchise that's never bothered having any explanation or lore, we sort of finally do. We get really into this idea, spoilers, I guess, of there was this accident in the 60s at this Skyview, and she saved the day and all of these people, but like none of these people were supposed to
They
exist.
should have
And
died. Yeah.
death is now been crossing them all off one at a time in this specific order, which I really like because it gives you enough where you're like, okay, cool. In this universe, this is why all these
Hmm.
cataclysmic things are happening. And it still posits a question that we don't need to answer of like, well, why did she even have the
The
vision in the
premonition.
first place? Like,
Right.
why was she so special to have that?
Yeah. It's so weird because
Uh,
it's the thing that sort of exists in every of these films where like somebody has one of these premonitions and then thus gets off. We've never sort of explained that. And I think as an audience, we've all sort of been like, okay, yeah,
I think everyone accepts it because people have gut instinct sometimes.
correct.
Like, I think there's something innately about these movies that we accept.
Yeah.
One, because everyone has been like, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Hmm.
But I think there's also like a little wish fulfillment of like averting a catastrophe. If
See,
you've
I was
seen one
right.
or been around one
Like,
or been
yeah.
like,
You were like,
yeah,
I got off that plane and then the plane
and
subsequently
then
crashed.
something bad happened. Or if on the inverse, you've been through a tragedy and you're like, oh, if only I had had that, like, I had
Correct.
listened. And we've had it in smaller ways. People have had bad relationships or gone to bad
Hmm.
things or had, and I just think that's why we're like hungry for stories like that that have a validation of the gut of the anxiety
Yeah.
almost of the validation of fear is something that not a lot of horror movies give you. Like we spend so much time in slashers being like, there's not a crazy killer in the woods, you fool.
Right.
And this is a movie that very quickly is like, oh shit, that dude was nervous and then they were right. And now we're
And
all fucked.
all hell is breaking loose. Yeah.
So I think it works well because you do kind of get to see like this full insanity of somebody
Hmm.
and watching just their own anxiety ruin a family.
Yeah.
And then to see that come around and be like, no, actually, she was 100% right. And now that barrier is down. Now
Right.
we got to hustle
Correct.
is rewarding. It's very rewarding to kind of just get there and right away to be like, yeah, we're not going to do Laurie Strode in Halloween 2018, where we spend half the movie,
With them being depressed off to
yeah,
their own
saying that she's
protecting.
insane and
Yeah.
all this nonsense. We're just going to get there.
Rip that
But I
band-aid
think
off.
it also works because everything is like practical and tangible. Like they built that Skyview Mall, they
And
built this
that's
bunker for her.
I think they've all not all of them, and I know the first one did, but that airplane was built. And I think when you do those, they feel a lot more lived in and real, whereas I know that the racetrack and the roller coaster were all CGI, and you could feel it. Oh, this feels a little bit more flimsy. Yeah, that whole opening sequence of this movie is fantastic, and you're like, and it does its job of like, okay, you know what you're in for. This is Final Destination. So any look that she gives, anytime she feels nervous and you see something break or something crack, is this going to be the one that does them all in? And you're on the edge of your seat the entire film because it knows like if you're in on this, if you're here for the sixth time, you know what we're about to do for you. And so you're just on pins and needles. And it does a great job of building these all things and heart. I think this is the first time that opening sequence had heart in it. Like you cared about those two people in the limited amount of time that you have with them. You're like, oh, she's got a kid. Oh, don't kill these guys. They're so sweet. Oh, nope, nope, no, they're all dying. Damn.
I think, yeah, they gave everyone it's so relatable so fast. I mean, all the family connections work. Like even her and the cousin Julia, just
Hmm.
right away when she's like, "Oh, I didn't know that you were doing a promposal." Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
You've been
he
gone.
is.
Bye.
Right.
Like that just yeah.
I've taken on the role of big sister now since you've ignored
Yep.
all of us. Yeah.
You bailed just like your
Yeah.
mom did. Now
Yeah.
we're all here. Like go away. And I was like, "Oh, this works so well because she's already an outsider and is now
Correct.
coming in and reminding people of this
Of this try.
tragedy.
Yep.
And then just some of the comedy beats are so good. The reveal of the like, I had the order wrong
So
because you're
great.
not the
You're not
biological
the
son.
such a great line. Yeah, so great. They play
It
with that
just
and they pay off that they give. I won't mess up that line because it's an important line that you just have in the audience, but it's great. But it's true. You tweak the formula just enough so you keep playing with it. You're like, that's why she was wrong, and this was, and then you and I love because we see them on the set where this is our first time where we have a full-on fake away. Like they show an entire sequence of what happens to somebody dying, quote unquote, and then you're like, nope, they're alive. And you're like, oh, well, that's the first time that's happened in the series. That's pretty badass to just sort of spend all of this time to watch that elaborate setup for it to not to pay off. And then in the subsequent scene, it pays off because the order was wrong, but it happens in the background, which is just like, oh, that's
that's
perfect.
my favorite
Chef's
shot in the
kiss.
movie is when
Yeah,
yeah, like I really don't want to spoil that moment if you haven't seen it, but she basically figures out the math, which I
right.
also to go on a small tangent. I love that this movie is like, oh, it's partly your instinct, but it's
It's an
math. Like
equation. It's an equation.
I can see all the things that would create danger, and I was like, oh yeah, this also is why these movies kind of work because they do pick things like the sky view is such a great setting for a horrible catastrophe to
Hmm.
happen. It's also a great place of like I would not be dancing on a glass floor.
Yeah,
I
like
don't
that
think
just seems like a bad idea
I
as
don't
a
think you
whole.
could get me to do that.
No. Yeah.
Um, and I think like all the big ones, even like the racetrack, which doesn't work, is like, oh yeah, shit goes crazy at those places. Like
Yeah.
I buy that this could go. An airplane
Hmm.
crashing is totally
Correct.
like there. And then so many of the other ones become that one in a million. And this circles back to the fake out. Um, it's one of the first times where the movie has kind of shown you like, hey, these crazy things can happen and you can make it. And I think
Right.
that's an interesting thing of like we've been playing in this one in a million and it has to exist in that space to have some grounding of reality showing us something insane happen
Hmm.
and someone be
And
like
you don't die.
I'm fine
Yeah.
is like a weird way of like oh yeah I mean like I've heard of people doing
Crazy stuff.
stunts
And then
or
just
sports or whatever that
walking
they're like
off.
yeah no what
I'm
can you
good.
do
I'm good.
yeah so I think that was a great way of doing that and kind of building up a character who's then sort of like, "Oh, I'm playing with
Yeah.
death."
Yeah.
Um,
We would be remiss if we didn't bring up the Tony Todd piece of this. It's funny. I didn't realize because he's been so, as far as I'm concerned, intertwined with this series that he's only appeared in three of the six films, which is like mind-boggling to me because I think because I one and two are so important to me that I hold the like, oh yeah, he's a part of those two films. And he's not in three or four, which is just fascinating. But we have the whole full circle moment where he was one of the folks that were in that Skyview thing. So all of his stuff, and when people keep coming back to him, it sort of makes those films a lot more stronger when you're like, oh, he does know more and has more information than pretty much anybody else in this because he was present. And I it's a bit of a tug string. It's clear that people sort of people developing this film had an idea of what was going on in his life, that this felt like his goodbye to just film and to this franchise, but to just movies like, all right, I'm out. I'm tired of you kids coming to me all the damn time to get your information. So it still works within the screenplay, but it also is kind of like, this is the last time I'm here, guys.
They talk
Goodbye.
they talked about that at the I went to a Q&A, a Fangoria screening before it was out for press folks.
Hmm.
And they did a Q&A after, and they talked specifically about that. And the producers, and I think that a few people on it were like close enough with him, they've known him forever, where they did know. And I think he all like everyone kind of was like, this is it.
Right.
um so his last little monologue that he has is fully improvised. That was his, like, I'm just going to go say goodbye to everybody.
Hmm.
And it's great. And then,
Yeah.
he kind of has the inevitability. We know he's sick in the movie. We know that once this bloodline is over, it'll come
It's
for
coming
him.
for
And
him.
in theory, the franchise is over now.
Right.
Um, but we don't ever see him die.
Correct.
And I think that that's a great choice.
Yeah.
I kind of would have liked seeing it if it was like peaceful, if he was just like on a beach and just like fell asleep and never
Yeah.
woke up.
I feel like they might still do that. I think for this particular film, because he just passed, they're kind of like,
Right.
let's not put it here. It's clear that they know that Tony Todd would be perfectly fine with him using his likeness to say, "Hey, this character dies on screen," because this he's a horror icon. So they're like, "Yeah, that he would get it." But for this one, they're probably like, "Let's pause that. If we do another one, let's subsequently like we can do whatever we want. We can play in the future, present, because there's a bunch of people that we haven't seen die based on that huge graphic chart that they have. But for Bloodworth, they might just be like, all right, let's show the opening sequence of him just passing away peacefully or doing whatever we can, and then continue on with what we have. Hell, you could even say that at some point in time, unknowns to him, he had a kid somewhere. Like you could continue this on easily
You
after
could
that.
very,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, people are creative.
but yeah,
We have somebody who survived. We have the flatliner thing from whichever
correct.
one that was. You could just have another tragedy that someone
Yeah,
saves
like
and
we're just
start
a
the
whole
whole
new
thing up
loop.
again.
Correct. Yeah.
Or go back in time, go to the
Hmm.
80s, go to the 70s, like
Right.
when that was in what, the
That was
60s?
in the 60s. So you have
And
decades where like it was trying to chase people and it missed. So some
yeah,
people lived clearly if the bloodlines got that far along.
you could definitely do a couple period piece ones. You could do it as much as you want, really.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we talk so often of like, let's give it a rest. And this one was so good that I almost immediately was like,
It's
yes,
like,
more.
bring me more of these.
We did it. It was hilarious and fun and gory and crazy.
Yeah.
Which apparently, I mean, circling back to kind of how we started it, the movie's going on to be the best opening of the franchise,
Ever.
even adjusted for inflation. So
Yeah.
if it's on track right now to do 51 million domestically. The
102
other,
worldwide, which is nuts.
yeah, the other highest one was The Final Destination, which was 27 million.
Right.
It would have been 41 in today's numbers,
Correct. Like I
which
say, none
is
of these movies have ever opened more than $28 million. So that's fascinating on two fronts in that they managed to one clearly keep the audience that they've always had. It's like, hey, you guys are gonna come back to us, but then they established and contacted a whole brand new audience. It's like, hey, I kind of want to see these because I want I want those moments in my lifetime of the imprints of terror that you guys had with the log. You guys see log cars, you guys like freaking the hell out. I want to know a piece of that.
yeah, I think it's a lot of, it's like a perfect storm of millennials nostalgia for what has kind of almost become more of a nostalgia of like the meme than the movies, I feel like.
Correct. Yeah.
It's that ongoing meme that has, it's just this franchise lives in the internet and the zeitgeist
Hmm.
forever seemingly now. And then, I we do see a lot more traditional marketing these days. And we've talked about this a lot on the show where it's like we have the trucks driving around with the logs on the back.
Genius.
We have like a
Genius.
big poster push. We have a lot of creative things. And we so often see movies now that has no effort in their
Yeah.
marketing to put it out in front of anywhere. And I think this is having a really strong push, not to mention it's like the most well received in it. Uh,
Yeah, both
so
critically
I
and fan wise. So the word of mouth is massive because this did huge on Friday, and then it kept growing, which is usually unheard of for horror movies.
It's a very interesting year for Warner Brothers where they started off so whatever and are now like Sinners, Minecraft, Final
Minecraft, we in
Destination.
this.
And then we'll have Superman of the summer and we will never fail. Come watch our streaming service that we keep
That we don't
renaming.
know the name of.
Yeah, it's yeah, I do think it's interesting when we talk about like why we keep telling these stories, and we touched on it a bit, but I think part of why we have a hunger for this is a lot of things, right? I think it's the catharsis of fighting death. I think
Hmm.
everyone relates a little bit to that, like, I'm going to escape it. I can do it. I can get away from whatever
Yeah,
this thing is. Very often in the past, they've given us shitty characters that we can watch die, and that's just always a good time. Now we're
very much
doing
so.
it
Yeah.
in a different way, and I think
Yeah.
that evokes the other side of death. It's
Hmm.
so interesting in a movie with so much comedy about it to like have these actors who are doing such a good job of like showing grief and remorse and trauma,
Hmm.
whether it's her aunt crying or her sister freaking out or her dad having this just kind of like rejection of
Speech,
all
like
of
in all
it,
of this. Yeah.
and yeah, everyone kind of reacting and moaning, and it's funny because I think that is part of why these are like evergreen themes. I don't think there's any reason of like it's so relevant to today's topics. I think this is an ongoing. Everyone wants to stave off
Right.
death.
Like you want to fight off death. Yeah.
Everyone kind of wants to validate their fears and anxieties, and it is fun. It is also that weird thing of like the best way to cope with something crazy is laughing at it, and it is
It is. Your pain.
hilarious to
Yeah.
laugh at these death
Coming out of
scenes.
your pain. And yeah, some of these are they're gruesome because they do a real good job of sitting on the deaths. Not too long, but enough that you get to see sort of the full ramifications of what's happening, and then they'll pull off. And I'm like, oh, and some of them are quote unquote over the top and Looney Tunes-esque,
Oh, they're all over the top.
but because you care about the characters, some of them you're like, oh, that's just a wild way. But then you and I were talking, there's some things in here where it's not a death, but it's just like, oh, that's painful, like a knife getting stuck in here, or like watching the ring, just like,
Ooh,
oh,
that's the worst one.
yeah, these like, oh, these are still moments where you, as an audience, feel the tension of the death. Where some of them you're like, ha ha ha, that's funny, but now I'm on a bit uncomfortable because now I don't know who else can get this real fast, and that's sort of what makes these movies work.
And the Rube Goldberg tension of just everything, just watching these like pieces of a puzzle
Yeah,
fall into place, and you're just like, oh my god, what's? It's almost sometimes like you just
it
like you
is.
need it to break, and you're like,
Yeah,
I've watched this sharp piece of ice go into all these. Who's gonna get it? Who's
who's
gonna
getting
get
it?
it?
Yeah, yeah, that's such a brilliant. That whole sequence is brilliant because you see it move from piece to piece. You're like, oh my God, somebody here's about to die. Just kill one of these mothers. What's happening now?
If yeah, it's like man, it only works as it's like man, if one of these things was off by a fraction of a
Hmm.
second,
Yeah.
uh, they do such a good job of doing that. And like, and I've seen the articles of like, oh, we Googled all these deaths, and like, guess what? That some of this stuff has happened, and you're like,
Yeah.
ah, and they're like only twice out of like a billion, but you're like,
It's
but
the
that's still so much.
it's the reason why you see some signs you're like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, don't jump off of this bridge this way. You're like, who would do that? It's like, well, that sign exists because there's a one person where this happened to, and they're like, we got to put a sign out because we can't have this happen again.
So, but yeah, someone did that once. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're great. I hope we get more. I do hope it takes some time. I don't really need one like tomorrow.
Yeah,
Um,
I like the pacing that they did before because I think the Scream sort of ran into this thing where they were doing almost trying to do it every year, every 2 years, where the destinations previously were every 3 years. So it'd be like 3 years is a solid amount of time where you're like, all right, we can put a script, let's actually work on this script a little bit and figure this out. But I'm also okay if this, because this one's so good, they took 5 years. I'm fine with that too. Just don't kill the friend. Like this isn't it. And I can tell by the way that these numbers are coming in that this isn't going to be it. Um,
I mean, I don't know. We haven't announced a sequel to Sinners. Maybe Warner Brothers is like,
let's do
we
original.
have,
Let's just do it one time and just get
we
out of
can make
here.
a lot of DC movies. Maybe everything else can chill.
Yeah.
Uh, but we will see. But that is our show, folks. Thank you for listening. You can, of course, leave us a review and subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, comment and subscribe there as well. And follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Hollywood ADI. I'm at, as always, Blake. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum and runs our YouTube channel, which has all of the trailer reactions and TV show reviews. And we will see everybody next time.
Later.